Good evening and welcome to the November 2015 Richardson Law Office's Legal Hangout. And as we enter the holiday season with Thanksgiving next week, and then Christmas and New Year coming up next month, and Hanukkah and all the other holidays we're facing, there's going to be a lot of celebration going on and a lot of partying. And unfortunately, that as it can happen, people get stopped for drunk driving. So I thought we would talk tonight about what you should do if, God forbid, you get stopped for drunk driving. First of all, don't drink and drive. I mean, that's the bottom line. You should never have to use the advice I'm about to give you. But should that happen, should you be stopped, it's always forewarned is forearmed. So let's go through some things that you need to bear in mind should this happen to you. Now, of course, if you're stopped for drunk driving here in New Jersey, and of course we're just talking about New Jersey law for any of you may be viewing from other states, just be aware of that. So if you're stopped, the police have to have probable cause to stop you. Now, usually that's some sort of driving behavior that makes them think that you might be drunk. One of the most common reasons police pull people over for drunk driving is weaving in the road. They see people weaving around, very erratic driving. Sometimes they'll get an anonymous tip of somebody that's seen a car driving erratically, and they'll be following a tip that's called into the dispatcher. But by and large, it's a stop because they've seen you do something or violate some law, a traffic law, or leads them to believe that you might be intoxicated. So they pull you over. Now, of course, as with any traffic stop, they're going to ask you for your license, registration, and insurance card. You provide that. Now, during this process, the officer is going to be observing you and seeing whether you have any indicia of intoxication, whether you have watery bloodshot eyes, whether you smell of alcohol on your breath or smells alcohol from the air in the vehicle, in your car, and whether you have any slurred speech, fumbling hand movements. There are all sorts of different things that can indicate that somebody's drunk. But one of the questions they'll ask you, and there are two key questions you need to listen to and pay attention to. The first is, have you been drinking? Now, this is a great question for the state, and if they can get an answer from you, it certainly helps them prove drunk driving. They want you to admit that you've been drinking, that they were right, that there's something going on here. Well, the biggest thing to bear in mind is you don't have to answer that question. You don't have to really answer any of their questions, really. You have provided your proper name, you've provided the proper documentation to them. So they ask you if you've been drinking. Your response should be, Officer, I am relying upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment. Don't ignore them completely. Don't just not say anything in response to his question. Let him know, or her know, that you're invoking your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. Now, don't let them talk you out of it. Okay, the old, you have nothing to hide, you can answer my question, or I'm just doing a preliminary investigation, that sort of thing. Or you're not under arrest. Sometimes they may try to get you to think that the Fifth Amendment and Miranda only exists if they've arrested you. Now, Miranda just has to do with when they have to advise you of your rights. That does not trigger your Fifth Amendment rights. They exist at any time because only you know, really, whether the answer to a question is going to incriminate you. Now, it's obvious. Have you been drinking? Well, if you admit to drinking, well, then that's a black mark against you in the case. So you're relying on your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. If they try to tell you, well, it's not custodial, you haven't been arrested, ask them, am I free to go? Now, you're not. They've stopped you for drunk driving. They think you're drunk. They're not going to let you go anywhere until they completed the investigation. So it's highly unlikely they're going to say, yes, you're free to go. If they say, yes, you're free to go, I said, well, then I'm leaving. But that's usually not going to happen. They say, no, I've got to complete my investigation. Well, if I'm not free to go, then this is custodial, and I'm invoking my right against self-incrimination. Second question sometimes I'll ask you, not always in connection with a drunk driving charge, but they sometimes do, is, is it all right if I search your car? Do I have your permission to search your car? The answer is always no. Okay. And again, don't let them go to, well, if you have nothing to hide, I just want to take a look. No. You do not have my permission to search my vehicle. I'm standing on my Fourth Amendment rights against search and seizure. Now, a police officer, absent consent, has to have probable cause to search your vehicle. And the law recently, there have been some court decisions that make it tougher on police officers. It used to be with a car, there were exigent circumstances, and they can search the vehicle and make them do their job. Okay. If they say, well, I can get a warrant, well, then get a warrant. But don't consent to let them search your car. Stand in your Fourth Amendment rights against search and seizure. And require them to prove probable cause. Now, they may search your car anyway, but at least it wasn't because you told them they could. And you still preserve that argument of improper search, that they didn't have probable cause, and you can still seek to suppress anything they might find in the car. Okay, so you've shown them your license, registration, and insurance. You've deflected some questions that could incriminate you or cause problems for you. And then they probably at some point are going to suspect that you're drunk, and they're going to ask you to exit the vehicle and do a field sobriety test. Now, there are all sorts of stories about what a field sobriety test is and what it isn't. But in effect, scientifically speaking, there are only 3 tests, and they must do all 3. They don't choose their pick of which one they're going to do. If it's an effective field sobriety test on suspected drunk driving, they must do all 3. The first is a walk and turn test. Walk a straight line. The second is a one-leg stand test, obviously. The third is something called a horizontal gaze nystagmus test. Now, what that is you are asked to follow an object with your eyes. The officer will shine a light in your face so you can observe your eyes, and then hold a fixed item like a pen or his finger in front of you, and ask you to keep your head still and move only your eyes and track the object, whether it's his finger or his pen, as he moves it from right in front of you over to the side and either side, and you track with your eyes. That test, the officer has to have particular training in how to conduct that test. And so because there are certain things he's going to score you on. Why they call it a horizontal gaze nystagmus test is that they're looking for what's called a nystagmus, a jerking in your eye as it doesn't track smoothly back and forth. And that can be an indication of intoxication. A walk and turn test, walk heel to toe 9 paces in one direction, turn and walk heel to toe 9 paces in the other direction. And of course, a third is a one-leg stand test. Now, if they do recite the alphabet or touch your nose or that sort of thing, those aren't scientifically accurate. And if they leave out one of the tests, one of the 3 tests I mentioned, then that can cause a problem for them. But they're looking at you and they're scoring you to determine whether you're intoxicated. Now, when he's administering the test, listen carefully to the instructions. Do not start the test early. Make sure you understand. If there's something you don't quite understand about it, ask. Make sure you understand the instructions before you commence the test, and then do the test. Also, if you have any kind of medical condition that might interfere with your ability to conduct the test, tell the officer. Now, the officer should ask you that question. Do you have any medical conditions that might interfere with the test? But if he or she doesn't, you bring it up. Make sure they know. If you have a bad knee, that's going to make it difficult for you to stand on one leg. An inner ear problem. Maybe you had a stroke recently that causes you to slur your speech or gives you a balance problem. Are you on any medications that could do that? So you want to make sure that you point that out. Any medical problems that you have that can interfere with your ability to do the test. I had a case not long ago in which a woman was given the one-leg stand test, and she told the officer that she had arthritis in her left knee, and it would make it difficult for her to do the test. Now, for whatever reason, when she did the one-leg stand test, she stood on her left leg and lifted her right leg. The officer didn't tell her, well, ma'am, you have a bad knee in your bad left knee. Maybe you should stand on your right leg. So that caused a problem with that test. Now, she did well. She didn't waver, but even if she was on her bad knee, and it could have given a defense or an alternate explanation for poor performance on the test, other than her being intoxicated. Now, with a walk and turn test, they look for things like, did you do 9 steps all the way up and all the way back in each direction? 9 steps, not 7, not 8, not 10, but 9. Did you touch heel to toe on all of those steps as you walk the straight line? Did your foot step off the line to regain your balance? Did you put your arms out to try to steady yourself? That sort of thing. Those are the things they're looking for. One-leg stand. Are you swaying back and forth? Do you put your arms out to steady yourself? Do you put your foot down, or are you basically unable to perform that test for the period of time that they give you, say 30 seconds? And they look for these, and there are a certain number of things that they have to observe, at least 2 for each test. And for the horizontal gaze nystagmus test, there are 3 things they look for in each eye, and you have to fail 3 out of the 6, 3 for each eye, to fail the horizontal gaze nystagmus test. So that's the field sobriety test. Now, if they, as a result of conducting that test, believe that you are intoxicated, then they will arrest you, and they will take you to the station. Now, once you get to the station, they're going to read you from a prepared statement. They'll be holding a sheet of paper and they'll be reading from it, because they have to read you at specific words and specific paragraphs on basically asking you to give a breath sample to the breathalyzer. After they read it, understand you cannot refuse to give a breath sample. You do not have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination like I talked about earlier with that question. That doesn't arise with giving a breath sample. You don't have a right to an attorney under the Sixth Amendment to be present before you give a breath sample. So if you refuse to give a breath sample, you will be charged with refusal, and those penalties are basically equal to drunk driving. And they may have enough from the field sobriety test to prove drunk driving, and you could be convicted of both drunk driving and refusal. So don't refuse the breath test, take the breath test. Now, if you have a cell phone on you, make note as to whether they take that cell phone from you. If they don't ask, don't offer it to them, okay? But take note of whether they say, ask you to empty all of your pockets, if they take the cell phone and take it out of the room. All right, it has to be removed from the room, certainly off your person. If they don't do that and you have your cell phone there the whole time, then you may be able to get any kind of breathalyzer reading invalidated. So that's something to bear in mind. Also, when you get there, look at your watch. Note the time. They have to observe you uninterruptedly for at least 20 minutes before giving you the breath test, before requiring you to give breath samples. If there's only one officer in the room with you and that officer leaves the room, the 20 minutes has to start all over again. They can't leave the room. So watch what that officer does. Does he keep an eye on you, he or she? And is that for at least 20 minutes? Again, check your watch. And then when they say, okay, we're going to get started, they fire the machine, they ask you to give the breath sample, check your watch again, and to see if it has been at least 20 minutes. Now listen carefully to the instructions that the police officer gives you about the breathalyzer machine. You have to blow into the tube for a certain period of time and give a certain volume of air in order for it to be a valid breath sample. And the reason for that is that science has shown that the air molecules in the bottom of your lungs are usually the most saturated with ethanol molecules, and therefore they want to get that air into the test chamber. So they want to make sure you take a deep breath and that you blow all of the air through the tube, a certain volume of air over a certain period of time. If you don't do that, the machine will say, no, that's not a good breath sample. And if it continues to click over and say, no, that's not a good breath sample, the machine will accuse you of refusal. A refusal can be based on the breathalyzer reading because, hey, they know. Maybe you're playing games. Maybe you're trying not to give a good enough breath sample, trying to be cute. You said you'd give a breath sample, but you got to cooperate. You can't do that. You have to give a proper breath sample. And if you don't, you can still be charged with refusal. So that's a problem. So that should give you some good pointers, things to bear in mind. Should you be arrested for drunk driving and things you should or shouldn't do. And hopefully you'll never have to use that knowledge. You'll have a good time over the holidays. Somebody else will drive if you're drinking, and you won't be charged. You won't be pulled over for that. But if you are, bear that in mind. So that's it for this month's episode of our Legal Hangout. Next month, December, where I said we're coming up against the holidays. Now, ordinarily, again, the Hangout is on the fourth Thursday at 5 p.m. This month, the fourth Thursday was Thanksgiving. So we're doing on the third Thursday, the 19th. Next month, the fourth Thursday is Christmas Eve. So I'm sure you're going to be with your family and doing other things other than watching me on YouTube. So we're not going to be doing the Hangout on Christmas Eve. We're going to be doing it on December 17th. So it's December 17th, 2015 at 5 p.m. And our topic are going to be the top 5 excuses that people give the police to pull them over. Now, we talked earlier about the police have to have probable cause to stop you. And drunk driving is usually weaving in the road or some sort of erratic driving, but they have to have probable cause. And if they don't have probable cause to stop you, all the charges can be thrown out. But people are driving around in New Jersey just giving the police probable cause to stop them. And as long as they have proper probable cause, anything else that may happen as a result of that stop could come back to haunt you with some serious charges. So in December, we're going to talk about the top 5 excuses that people on the roads in New Jersey are giving the police to pull them over. And I'll also be answering any questions you may have. So if between now and then you have a question about New Jersey traffic law, you can email it to steve@richardsonlawoffices.com, or you can tweet it and tag me at SJRLaw on Twitter. And I will answer that question for you in our next Hangout on December 17th. Now, if you like this video and found it informative, I'd ask you please click on that like button down there, the thumbs up. It'll help me in the search rankings, help other people find this video, who also hopefully find it informative. So if you like it, click the thumbs up. And if you like these videos that I have on the channel, be sure to subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. Every month we do a Hangout on a different topic. And I also add informative short videos to the channel on a regular basis that, who knows, you might learn something. So that's it for this month. I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll see you in December.